Olá, olá, BPM Friend! Hoje nós vamos receber uma convidada muito especial aqui no canal do YouTube da DECA, o maior canal de BPM do Brasil. Professora Shazia Sadiq, da Universidade de Queensland, em Brisbane, na Austrália, mas não é a mesma universidade onde eu passei a minha temporada por lá. Eu tive a oportunidade de conhecê-la somente na BPM Conference de 2025, onde ela era a keynote speaker, a palestrante principal da abertura do evento, falando sobre o Toolkit Essencial do Cientista de Processos. Depois que nós tivemos a oportunidade de nos conhecermos e conversar um pouquinho, eu a convidei para trazer esse tema que eu considero importantíssimo aqui para a nossa comunidade de BPM Friends do Brasil. Então, desde já, quero que você me ajude a receber com toda a pompa e circunstância a professora Shazia Sadiq, curtindo esse vídeo, compartilhando, comentando aqui o que você achou dos pontos que ela trouxe e mostrando a força da nossa comunidade de BPM aqui no Brasil. Vamos lá? Hello, BPM friends. Welcome to DECA's YouTube channel, the biggest YouTube channel in BPM in Brazil. My name is Andrea Magalhães and I'm the host. This is our space to explore business process management, innovation, and the brilliant minds shaping this field around the world. Today, I'm truly honored to receive a very special guest, Professor Shazia Sadiq from the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. She is one of the leading global researchers in process science. We had the opportunity to meet at the BPM Conference 2025, where she delivered an inspiring keynote titled The Essential Toolkit for Process Scientists. Shazia, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me, Andrea.
Shazia, to begin, I would love if you can share a little bit about your journey. How did you enter the world of BPM and process science? What were the milestones and research topics that shaped your path over the last years?
Thanks, Andrea. And actually, this is a very good question because it got me thinking as to when did I first get interested in processes? For most people, the start of their journey is when they start their PhD. But when I thought about your question for me, it was actually in my master's thesis. Now, this is a long time ago. It's late 80s, pre-internet, and in Pakistan, the world was a very different place. So my master's project was to build a case flow management system for the Supreme Court of Pakistan. This was commissioned by the Ministry of Law and Justice at that time. Now, my favorite subject in college was data management. But for the first time during this project, it demonstrated to me that in most applications, it is not just about the data snapshot, but about the data flow. So fast forward that almost 10 years, and I started my PhD at the University of Queensland. I was super excited. The topic that my PhD supervisor, I want to acknowledge Professor Maria Orlowska, was proposing was on workflow technology. So that was very exciting for me. And even more exciting, it was on change management. And study of dynamics is always a level up. So over the course of my research career, Andrea, I have seen workflow technology morph into business process management, and then more recently into process science. And a rather, you can say obvious observation, for me, it's been quite important all along, is that processes, they don't function in isolation, right? So these external influences that shape and break processes, that has always been an intriguing phenomena for me. I give you a couple of examples. So one is policy or regulation, which influences what a process can and cannot do, right? So the study of business process compliance, and I did a lot of work on that, is really fascinating, both from a technical point of view, but also from a governance point of view. And then another one is data. So we all know pitfalls of data quality, right? How that can literally break any system, including process management systems. Alternately, how good quality data enables and accelerates process improvement. So I feel I've been very lucky to have had the opportunity to work with colleagues from computer science as well as business information systems at the same time, right? So this intersection has really shaped my path and always making me question if something would work technically, would it also work organizationally and vice versa? So this always keeps me busy.
Shazia, and before we dive into your keynote, I'd love to hear a little bit about your perspective on process science. How do you see the field of process science today? What's coming next in this field, considering the next few years?
Yeah. So process science has evolved from multiple perspectives, right? Different disciplinary lenses. It includes information systems, data science, data mining, operations research, organizational theory, more recently, a lot of machine learning and AI. So it's become this vibrant melting point, and it's quite unusual in academics because we thrive on specialization. Sometimes over specialization, gets rewarded. So currently, I think the field is characterized by an amazing ability to observe and analyze and improve processes at scale. And as with many areas, data has been the underpinning of the field. In particular, we talk a lot about event data, and then you combine that with quite a sophisticated set of analytical tools that the community has been contributing on. And now we can capture, complex cross-functional processes, and we can do that at a level of fidelity and transparency. I would say that was unimaginable even like a decade ago. So this has enabled like really rich insights into performance, of course, compliance, variability, so study of deviations is particularly interesting around customer experience, obviously enabling organizations to make better decisions. In terms of what's coming next, Andrea, in your question, I think there is this exciting shift that we can observe from descriptive to prescriptive, and now increasingly to generative capabilities, right? So process mining has matured as a foundation technology. I think it's a big success story because there are big companies, now offering solutions and services. To me, the next frontier is like kind of closing the loop. So not only discovering processes, but continuously adapting. I'm a big fan of change management, right? So continuously adapting and improving them through automation, through simulation, through optimization, and AI is undoubtedly, like in many areas, powering a lot of these developments. So the boundary between analyzing a process and transforming it is like becoming kind of fluid, right? I think in the next few years, process science is going to be shaped by a few developments. We are already seeing some exciting work. We have a lot of ground to cover. I'll mention a few things that I'm observing. I think the deeper integration with AI is quite obvious. This is not limited to language models, but more, predictive and context-sensitive process support. Another one, I think that we are increasingly understanding the importance of the socio-technical lens. So combining behavioral insights with the digital traces and the event logs that we've been doing. So to understand not just what is happening, but why. Another thing that I can see becoming quite important is real-time process control. So enabling organizations to respond in a timely way and dynamically. Looking at all these trends, I can also see that there will be a broadening of the application areas. So currently we've been, business process management, so we've been focused a lot on business applications. But a lot is happening in health, in process science. So many people working on health. I have been working in education, which I think is an exciting application area. And we can, expect to see process science. We already see it in areas like sustainability, public sector, even, safety critical systems. So I think the field has a lot to offer, Andrea. It's a strong interdisciplinary community, and they will continue to move the field forward.
Shazia, I was truly inspired by your keynote focus on change, compliance, and comprehension. You were the opening keynote speaker on the main stage of the BPM Conference, the most respected conference in our field. How was this experience for you? How does it feel to open and set the tone for the entire event? One woman on the stage. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, the BPM conference is indeed the premier conference. It offers three tracks. So it's got foundations, engineering, and management. And then alongside that, there are usually several workshops, tutorials on established topics, but also emerging topics. And I'm part of the steering group there. So I know that there is these really excellent mechanisms every year. The program chairs carefully bring together keynotes, one from within the community, one from a sister discipline, one from industry. So you are right. The BPM conference series is one of the big successes in academia. I've had a privilege of being part of it, just seeing firsthand the significant impact that it has had on people's careers, of course, knowledge advancement, but also industry uptake. There's been a lot of industry uptake. So, of course, it was very special. I was deeply honored to present a keynote there. I have to say that I have worked in data management, at least in the last, several years, even more intensely than in BPM. But I always think of BPM as my home ground, right? Because that was my PhD topic. And to be able to present the opening keynote at our flagship conference is a lovely highlight of my career.
In your keynote, you highlight change as an essential capability for process scientists. And how do you see the role of process science in driving organizational transformations? And what skills do professionals need today to navigate environments that are constantly changing?
Good that you mentioned organizational transformation. So business processes are indeed, they are central to organizational transformation. There's no doubt about that. Another thing we know, and I highlighted in my keynote, is that change is the only constant in life, right? So this is like an ancient adage. It was recognized centuries ago. And yet, even to this date, we are building systems, we are building processes with assumptions of a static and certain world. So current state of affairs in the world is particularly challenging, and that assumption more than ever before is quite true. At least in my lifetime, I can see that it's particularly challenging. So your question is on the role of process science. You may know, and many of your listeners may know also that, change management was actually, arguably, you can say, something that initiated the BPM field. I show you this particular paper, which is going back to the pioneering works of Mike Hammer. It was one of the first papers I read when I started my PhD. And his core message back in 1990 was on obliteration, right? Wipe out, completely throw away, which is to, what his words were, to radically rethink and redesign. And he talks about this new era of computer-based systems and a fast-moving world. And how familiar does that sound, right? We can easily replace computer-based systems with AI. And his message will perfectly fit into the discussions we are having now. So fast forward again, about 20 years, and I can share with you some of the seminal works on process change management that the BPM community has been doing. I had the privilege of working with others from the community. We approach change management as the ability of the enterprise to react to changes in the environment. These changes, like today, they can be expected to stem from changes in the market, disruptions, opportunities, policy or compliance requirements, or sometimes just, improvements in the organization's operations and efficiencies. So they can come both internally and externally. In fact, we would struggle to find a business process then, all those years ago, and now that is not exposed to change. So the frequency may vary, but as Mike Hammer outlined very nicely, he said the stagnant processes for a long time eventually end up in a place where there is no option but to obliterate, right? Obliterate is very expensive, right? It's easy to say, but it's very expensive and can bring down the whole company. And so, you look at where the process science conversations are going on right now. This is a paper from 2021. I was really delighted to see this paper from thought leaders in our community. And they have now really cemented the pivotal role that processes play, not only in redesigning, like what Mike Hammer said, or responding, like, the earlier papers, to change, but in being change agents themselves and influencing change, right? So this is the mission of process science, and they describe it as designing ways to influence change for the better. I really love that. So, process scientists, they have this proud history of so many contributions over the years. And you can see, BPM researchers and process scientists, like 3 decades have been deeply involved in this. Change management now, Andrea, we are facing in the age of AI is really massive. We talk about workforce disruption. There is a lot of anxiety. There is cultural resistance to this change. There are technical issues like integration with legacy systems. You asked a question about skill. It's a very good question. And I think that the most important skill for professionals right now is resilience. How do we bounce back when things fail? And there will be failures and disappointments. Just, it's currently so hyped up, the world of AI. So there is no doubt that's what's going to happen. So an exciting area of process science is how we sense, observe, predict, and guide through change. And I look forward to the important contributions from colleagues in process science in the near future.
The second element in your toolkit is compliance. Organizations now deal with increasingly complex regulatory landscapes regarding ESG, privacy, responsible AI. Shazia, from your perspective, how can process science help companies balance innovation with compliance without limiting their ability to evolve?
Very good question, Andrea. And, what you have observed, this friction between innovation and compliance, or you can also say agility and responsibility, is an ongoing challenge for organizations, right? It is one of those problems that we can only manage, but never completely solve, right? So you are very right to observe that the regulatory landscapes are getting increasingly complex with ESG, with privacy, and now with AI. So, I do remember the large number of corporate scandals in early 2000s. It resulted in various regulations being introduced, such as Sarbanes-Oxley. And currently, we are seeing a high number of AI standards and regulations coming from governments, from individual organizations, from industry peak bodies. And a student of mine did a bit of a review of global standards coming from different places, particularly from the public sector. And we can see that there are common themes around data protections, around disclosure, around accountability, but there is a lot of overlap and inconsistency. Plus, these standards are constantly evolving because the technology is changing so rapidly. So what we are hearing from many of our partners in industry is that there is this high level of uncertainty and actually a lack of knowledge, a lack of training on how businesses can navigate these additional requirements from AI standards and regulations, right? Yeah, I think it is going to be a very challenging thing for businesses to demonstrate compliance to these standards. Over the years, the BPM community has made significant contributions to manage this problem. You know, there have been different approaches, sometimes with more flexible business process designs through constraints. You may have heard of, flexible processes or declarative processes. These are really good ways of keeping the model rather loose and adapt at runtime. But we also have worked through what we can call compliance-aware business process design, right? Compliance-aware business process design, or sometimes we call it compliance by design. This is old work, and in that period, there was this trend of calling by design to many things, right? So very simply, there are these two essential ingredients for the compliance by design approach. The modeling of the internal controls, and then using them to enrich or augment the process model, thereby making it compliant by design. The challenge that has observed from all the work is what we call this ontological alignment, because the terminology and the semantics of the two domains, right, BPM and controls management, they do not naturally coincide. One is a world of business and one is a world of legal. So to further our mission of compliance by design, we do have a lot of work to do, especially with the rise of AI regulations and standards. There's process management tools and practices that can, we want to develop such tools and practices that can align these conflicts between process and control objectives. I think that new developments, especially in language models, can provide some effective ways of if used properly. There's lots of hallucination there, but if used properly, can help us tackle this terminology alignment between process and control objectives. And this compliance-aware business process design, I think, can play a pivotal role in assisting businesses in navigating this complex regulatory landscapes that you very nicely described. I just also want to make a subtle point regarding alignment, because even though I'm talking about terminology here, it's not always about terminology. The alignment can be much deeper than terminology. There is this brilliant book by Brian Christian, which is called The Alignment Problem. Now, the book is all about systems that learn from data, right? So obviously, it's about machine learning and AI systems. And he asks the question, what exactly are we trying to teach them being the systems, right? So the alignment problem goes beyond alignment between two systems or two vocabularies, and becomes a question of alignment between two value systems, right? And which one takes precedence? I think it's a fascinating question in the age of AI.
Shazia, and you close the toolkit with comprehension. What does it really mean to understand a process deeply? And how exactly comprehension can transform the way we research, teach, and apply BPM in practice?
Yeah, you're very right, Andrea, that comprehension can transform how we research, how we teach, and how we apply BPM in practice. In fact, comprehension is fundamental to all areas, not just BPM. It's a vehicle for almost everything we do, right? If we don't understand it, we can't really manage it. And at the same time, it is also an objective or an end goal, right? So it's a means and an end at the same time. So it's an end goal for us as researchers because we are in the pursuit of knowledge, right? And as educators because we teach. I do want to point out that I am using comprehension as an umbrella term. So with your listeners out there who are really experts in the field, they would say comprehension is not the same as understanding, is not the same as learning, right? So we do need to distinguish it. And obviously understanding and learning and comprehension is quite a mature area, right? It has fascinated the minds of brilliant scientists for centuries, right? How do humans actually learn? There have been several theories that underpin how we can study and measure comprehension or understanding, right? And these theories have been proposed and then refined and then extended and sometimes refuted for many, many decades. Actually, it goes way beyond 1972. I just started from here because we are talking about digital artifacts, right? And we have learned many valuable lessons from these theories, like the theory of the cognitive load theory tells us that higher cognitive load results in more errors, and the errors also increase, the rate of errors increases. The multimedia theory tells us that information presented in diagrams needs less mental effort, right? Information presented in an integrated manner is considered to reduce cognitive load. So it's an integrated theory of mind. So, and we've done a lot of work in integrating, different artifacts like process models and business process rules. They always coexist, but they are not integrated. And we do learn that comprehension, of course, is much improved when you present integrated ways of modeling and representing them. The question here is, why should process scientists care about comprehension? What is it? We are often thought about as either a technical field or a very much a organizational field. So I think we care about informed decision making. Right? We care about cross-functional collaboration, one of the first things that Mike Hammer was pointing out. We care about effective communication with employees and customers. These are core business processes in any organization. The holy grail of BPM, we care about driving process improvement, right? And we care about developing, and supporting skills development. And we need process understanding for all of these, right? And it's not just, when we talk about understanding, it's not just our own individual understanding, like domain understanding, but also shared understanding, do you and I understand it in the same way, whatever phenomena we are trying to grapple with. And also cross-understanding is that do I understand what you understand? So it's quite a complex but fascinating field of study. The process science community has done some nice work on understanding of process models, looking both at factors relating to the model itself, like complexity of constructs or layouts, and as well as considering factors relating to the human, to the users. These studies have definitely contributed to designing process models and rules and related artifacts in ways that it assists and promotes comprehension and amplifies the work of process workers. The question also is, what can we learn from comprehension studies on processes to tackle some of the growing challenges that we see in AI. And one point I'd like to make is we are increasingly seeing that over-reliance on AI, right? It is very beneficial, it is very cost-effective, it is a great opportunity and a powerful technology that we should be embracing. But we do observe that, and I worry about it, that over-reliance on AI can lead to skills erosion. So how do we measure skills erosion due to over-reliance on AI? I think it is going to be an increasingly important question of our time.
Shazia, and finally, is there anything you'd like to add or something we haven't covered but you feel is important for people to understand better about this toolkit?
Yes, sure. So we talked about three things: comprehension, compliance, and change. I do want to say, and I said that in my talk as well, that this is not an exhaustive list, right, for process scientists. But I can still say that you won't get very far as a process scientist if you ignore these. The other thing is that these competencies, they don't exist in silos, right? It is indeed when a process scientist combines them, right, that real progress can happen. And more importantly, in terms of competencies of process scientists, I just want to go back to my previous point to watch out for potential skills erosion within the process workers, process analysts, community, professional community, as AI becomes more and more pervasive in business applications, in enterprise systems, and so on. So, I'd love to do a call out for people interested in to better understand the skills and tools needed by process scientists. They are very welcome to dig into some of the great papers that are coming through a relatively new Springer Journal on process science. So some gold nuggets over there.
Shazia, thank you so much for this rich and inspiring conversation. It's always a privilege to hear from someone who is pushing the boundaries of process science and connecting cutting-edge research with real organizational impact. Thank you for sharing your vision, your experience, and this essential toolkit with our Brazilian community.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea. It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone watching, if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the DECA channel, and share it with other professionals passionate about process. See you in the next episode. Thank you, Shazia. Bye bye. BPM Friend, o que você achou dos 3 pontos que ela trouxe? Gestão da mudança, compliance ou conformidade e compreensão de processos. Como ela mesma mencionou, essa não é uma lista exaustiva ou completa, mas são 3 pontos essenciais para quem quer ser um bom cientista de processos. Comenta aqui embaixo desse vídeo para mim quais foram as suas impressões, o que mais te chamou a atenção, o que você achou do panorama geral que ela deu sobre Process Science, ciência de processos. Não esquece de dar o seu like nesse vídeo, compartilhar com os outros de BPM Friends e nos vemos em breve em mais um vídeo bacana de BPM da DECA para você. Até lá!